I need to share my screen. Okay, thank you. Okay. Now, what about today? Can you all hear me? Sudesha is there and Ilma is also there. Right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay. Sudesha?
Yeah, ma'am, we can hear.
Okay, fine. Right. So now yesterday we missed the session because of these technical issues, no? Right? So, okay, now today we'll catch up from yesterday's work. Actually, I was about to talk about yesterday's part, but only I was approaching to the discussion. Now, without giving you further details about the background information, I will just directly start this section, okay? And I hope you are aware that we are talking about manner of articulation under consonant sound production. And as very briefly to tell, when we talk about the consonant productions, there are 4 important phonetic features to be thought of. One is this the state of the glottis, and the second one, the function of the velum or the soft palate, and the third one, place of articulation, and this fourth one is the manner of articulation. So today we'll have a look at this manner of articulation. Okay, so when we think about this, both place and manner of articulation, you should understand under these criteria, we are classifying consonants, right? Because consonants are a kind of, so many consonants are there and we can classify them in so many different ways. So there are so many classifications available when we talk about the production of consonant sounds. So we can classify consonants into different types according to the phonation, that means the state of the glottis, that is voiced and voiceless consonants. And second one, we can classify consonant according to the function of the velum, that is the production of oral consonants and nasal consonants, right? So these types are less in number, but when you talk about the place of articulation, there are so many types of consonants available, such as bilabials, labiodental, dental, velar, palatal, etc. And when we now talk about the manner of articulation, here also now, as you can see here on screen, so many different types of consonants available. So you need to be aware of these different types of consonants and what kind of category they are coming in and how, and also examples of these types. So this kind of details you have to have, right? Okay, so now manner means how. That is the idea. Manner of articulation, how we produce or how we articulate consonants, not where, of course, probably, right? When we talk about where, in which particular place in the oral tract we are producing consonant sound. So that came under the place of articulation. Okay, here we talk about now, you just take it like this. The main feature of the consonant sound production is the block, the obstruction done to the airstream. That is how consonants differ from vowels, right? We obstruct the airstream that is generated from the lungs, inside the lungs, and comes upward and enters the vocal tract and finally goes out of the body. So we disturb this airstream using speech organs at any place inside the vocal tract and also in any way, right? We disturb or block this airstream in different ways. So according to these different ways, we have different types of consonants produced using this airstream. Okay, so basically, we can block the airstream, right? We fully block the airstream. Complete closure, we call it. Or else, sometimes we do not completely block the airstream. Instead, it is partially blocked. Only half blocking is partially done, right? So that is another way of producing sounds, consonant sounds. And in some other situations, when we block the airstream, we produce a kind of hissing sound, shh kind of sound. So that is another way. So etc. So these are the different ways of producing consonant sounds by blocking the airstream. So on the manner of articulation, we are going to talk about these different ways and accordingly how we can identify certain types of consonant sounds. Okay, right. So first one we get stop consonants. And sometimes you must be familiar with the word plosive, right? The word plosive is also there. So it's not available here on screen, the word, so I'll write it. Plosive. Either plosive or we can use oral stop. Or some other times you might say just the word stop only, right? Okay. So these are the three different terms that are usually available to introduce this first type of consonant sounds. So this you need to understand. We produce stop consonants by fully blocking the airstream, right? So it says involving complete closure of two articulators with the vellum raised. So we call it belly closure, right? So when we fully block the airstream, usually our vellum means the soft palate is raised. So you understand by now what is happening when the vellum is raised. Okay, so when the vellum is raised, the airstream cannot enter the nasal tract. So it enters only the oral tract. So final product is an oral consonant sound. Okay, so, right? Which means when we produce stop consonants, most of the time belly closure is there, right? And we produce oral consonants. Now here you have an example per. The sound per. Now we using the phonetic script, we can write the sound like this per, in this way. Okay, right? So now can I know for 1 second whether you have an idea regarding this phonetic script? Actually, I can't remember whether I myself discussed about the phonetic script or phonetic symbols with you all. I think I have discussed with, while I was talking about the classification of sounds, classification of consonants. You got to know about phonetic script. Am I correct?
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay, right. So remember, okay, try to keep these phonetic symbols in your mind throughout the module, because otherwise you might find it difficult to write the pronunciation. Okay, just like what I did now. Okay, especially when you talk about the place and manner of articulation, you need to provide examples, and you need to provide your examples in phonetic script. Unlike in these notes, of course, right? Now you can see here things like this. This is just a letter P, of course, according to how it has been written. And the thing is, I have directly taken this stuff from the module. So they have provided only the letters, but actually you should write the sounds when you write examples. So this is not the way you should write a sound, as you know, right? It should be with 2 slashes. And in some other situations, of course, these phonetic symbols are different from the relevant letter. So that is also there, right? So always keep on alert on your memory about these phonetic symbols, right? Okay. So this is the first category, then stop. I think you can understand about the production of stops, right? This is the key idea. Keep this in your mind always. When we talk about the production of stop consonants, we completely block the airstream by contacting 2 articulators. Articulators means speech organs, right? So when you think about the production of per, the 2 articulators are the 2 lips, upper lip and the lower lip. So when we have to say per, we block the airstream fully using upper and lower lips. And then we suddenly release the airstream. So that is how we produce per. Okay, right. Per is one example. And the second category, you have nasal consonants. And there's a particular word for that, nasal stop also. Okay, there are so many nasal sounds. And among these nasal sounds, we have nasal stops. So this involves complete closure of 2 articulators, right? Just like the above, just like the first category, complete closure of 2 articulators, but there is a difference with the velum lowered, right? With the velum lowered, so we call it velic opening. Velic opening. Okay, so there are 2 things happening. You need to pay your attention to the, now if you just think about this diagram, you can see, right, when you talk about the, now this is of course is used to give you an idea about the place of articulation and the different places, but forget about these places of articulation for the moment, right? Think about the manner of articulation. So when you talk about nasal stops, what can happen? Okay, just think about the oral stop, the first category. In oral stops, this velum, this area is called the velum. This is raised. This is completely raised like this, blocking the entrance to the nasal cavity. So the air passes only through the oral cavity, right? And our example was per. So when the velum is in this position, what do you think about the lips? These 2 lips are touched. The 2 lips are touched, right? So that is the production of oral stops. And nasal stops, this velum is lowered, right? It is lowered like this. Right. It is in this position, as you can see. So when the velum is lowered, you can see there is a space for the air stream to enter the nasal tract, right? It enters the nasal tract. So it goes out of the body. Nose is not indicated here in this diagram. Anyway, you know nose is somewhere there, right? So the nasal tract is not available in the diagram, not only the nose, right? So it's above this. So airstream enters the nasal cavity and flows through the nasal cavity, goes out of the body through nose, right? And when you talk about particularly this nasal stop, there are sounds like, examples like na, right? Na. Now what is happening in na? The velum is lower, fine, which assures that the air flows through the nasal cavity. And at the same time, when you say na, right, the 2 articulators, can any one of you tell me what the 2 articulators are? When you say na, this is the sound. Na. The 2 articulators. Any idea? Na is actually an alveolar consonant, right? It's an alveolar consonant. So when you know it is an alveolar consonant, you should know the two articulators. One is the tip of the tongue, right? This tip of the tongue rises
And hard palate.
no, not the hard palate, right? Na.
Lower lip. Lower lip.
When you say na, okay, you say this sound in isolation. Tip of the tongue, right? Tip of the tongue rises and touches which part? Which, now you know, teeth is there. And after the teeth, alveolar ridge. And after the alveolar ridge, you have the hard palate and soft palate. Now, these are the areas in the upper part of the mouth. No? So, when you say na, like when you say not, in the word not, the first sound I'm talking about, right? Na. What does the tip of the tongue touch?
The alveolar.
Alveolar ridge. It touches the alveolar ridge, and that is why we categorize na under place of articulation as an alveolar sound. Okay, right. So here under manner of articulation, of course, we are not particular where the sound is produced, but how? So just be familiar with the production of nasal stops here. One is when the airstream flows through the body, it enters the nasal cavity, which means the sound is a nasal sound, right? The sound is a nasal sound. And the example, na, the two articulators, which means the tip of the tongue and the alveolar ridge, are contacting each other, right? They are contacting each other means tightly touched. Na. You can feel it with your tongue, right? When you say na, we block the airstream using tip of the tongue and the alveolar ridge. For every stop position in English, there is a nasal articulated in the same position, right? So now you know there are oral stops as well as nasal stops. For every stop position, there is a nasal sound also. If there's an oral stop, just like per, there is a nasal stop as well, just like na. There is another nasal stop. Can you guess that? Another nasal sound which is produced like a stop. There also you are fully blocking the airstream. Can any one of you guess that? Because there are a limited number of nasal consonants available. Very limited number of nasal consonants available. So you can easily find the sound. Anybody can guess? The other nasal stop? Of course, it is not an alveolar sound like na. Another one, another category under place of articulation, but still a nasal sound, and we fully block the airstream. Do you remember? No idea. What about this sound?
Ma.
Ma. Yeah, that is what I wrote here. Hope it's clear to you. Ma. Right? Now, when you say ma, you can feel just like per, right? You use your both lips to fully block the airstream. That is why we call it a stop. And the airstream flows through the nasal cavity. Unlike per. Okay, so I hope you can understand these examples also, right? Okay, so we'll think about the next category under manner of articulation, fricatives. Fricative, it's called spirant also, spirant. involving close approximation of two articulations, articulators. This is the feature of fricatives. Now, in the earlier two categories, we could see complete closure of two articulators, in the sense the two articulators are tightly touching to each other. But when we produce fricatives, the two articulators are not completely touching each other. They are drawing closer to each other only. That is the meaning of the term close approximation. They are coming closer only. Okay? And the airstream is partially obstructed, partially. So that a turbulent airflow is produced, resulting in a hissing or rubbing sound. Hissing sound. So, for hissing sound, you have the term friction. The phonetic term for hissing sound is friction, and that is why we have got this name fricatives, because it produces a friction. So here the what's happening is that the airstream is not fully blocked. It is partially obstructed or partially blocked because the two articulators are coming closer to each other only. Close approximation, not fully blockage. Okay. So as a result, now, you know, when there is a small space and when the airstream has to pass through it, it can cause a kind of sound or hissing sound. So that is what is happening in the production of fricative consonants, right? And there are so many fricatives available. One example is there, sir, right? Sir, I'll write the sound in phonetics also, sir. So you can say this, right? You can just switch off your mic and produce these sounds. You can feel yourselves how far this is happening, or how far this is true, right? When you say sir, sir, okay, tell me, just for a change, tell me what are the two articulators when you say sir? The two articulators. They are not meeting fully, but they are coming closer only now. So what are they? If you remember the place of articulation of sir, you can easily tell the two articulators. Sir is also alveolar consonant, which means when we produce sir, our tip of the tongue rises slightly and goes near the alveolar ridge. It does not touch the alveolar ridge, of course. There is a space in between tongue and the alveolar ridge. So airstream is passing through this space, this small space, producing a hissing sound. Sir, sir. Okay. Right, so I hope it's clear to you. And that's about fricatives. And the next category, affricate. Next major manner of articulation, right? According to the manner of articulation, next major category or type. So here what's happening? Consisting of a stop released into a fricative. Now this is the feature. Actually, all these features, the main features are given in brief, right? In 1 or 2 lines. So you need to catch the idea by reading these lines. A stop released into a fricative. This is the nature, the manner of the production of this particular category called affricate, right? Now, you have an example, the sound of ch in English. This sound is analyzed either as a complex or a simple sound. Okay, I will write the phonetic symbol of ch. This is how we write ch using the phonetic symbol. This or it can be even this. There are 2 symbols anyway, right? So when you want to write ch, you can select either the first one or the second one. Both are the same anyway. So think about how you produce this sound ch. First, we block the airstream. right? So it is much more like the production of a stop consonant because we fully block the airstream. But unlike the production of stops, right? Now in a stop production, we fully block the airstream and then we suddenly release it. But in affricates, we fully block the airstream at the first place. But then after that, the airstream is slowly released with a hissing sound, with a friction. So that is why you have here affricate consists of a stop released into a fricative. Stop released into a fricative. You can say the sound and feel this, of course, yourselves. Ch. Right? When we say ch, we block the airstream with our front part of the tongue. Front part is the body of the tongue and the hard palate. The front of the tongue rises and touches completely the hard palate. Ch. But after that, do they suddenly apart? No. They are slowly getting apart, which means the tongue is coming down slowly with the hissing sound. Ch. The other example for affricate is j, right? The other one is j, and the symbol is this, right? Ch. Ch and j are the affricates. Okay, right. So I think affricates are clear to you. Am I making clear, right? Making these things clear to you all? Any doubt so far?
No, madam, it's clear.
Right. Next one, trill. Oh, it's called roll as well, right? But the common word is trill. So this involves complete closure, alternating intermittently with open approximation. Okay. So now most of these terms are familiar to you by now, right? You know what do you mean by complete closure and open approximation or close approximation. So actually, what is the idea? What's happening? A rapid vibration of the active articulator against the passive articulator. This sound is not common in English except for the Scottish r, made with an apical trill, right? R. Actually, the example is this. Example for r is this. Okay. So what's happening when you say r? That is what you need to think of here. R. Rapid vibration of the active articulator. Now, can I have some idea from you whether you are aware of this active articulator and passive articulator? Because so many times I have been talking about these things and I can't remember whether I mentioned these two types of articulators with you. Do you have any idea about this active and passive? In order to understand the module, you should know about active and passive articulators. No? Any idea? Or do you want me to explain?
Active articulators are the lower lip and the tongue. Passive articulators are the upper lip, upper teeth, and roof of the mouth.
Okay. So what did you say as active articulators? Tongue and the other one?
Lower lip.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Right? You gave a very clear answer. Actually, basically, you can keep in your mind active articulators means the articulators or speech organs that are moving, right? That are moving. And they are the ones that are rising and touching the other articulators when we want to block their stream in different ways. And on the other hand, passive articulators, they are fixed. They don't go anywhere. Only the active articulators are coming and touching the passive articulators. So as you said, the main two active articulators are the lips and the tongue. And when we talk about the lips also, that is the lower lip, right? Lower lip and all the parts of the tongue. And passive articulators are the ones that are situated in the upper part of the oral tract, of course, the upper lip and teeth. Now, when we talk about the teeth, of course, we consider anyway upper teeth, right? Because the lower teeth are not important in the sound production. So upper lip, upper teeth, and alveolar ridge. Okay, alveolar ridge, and soon after the alveolar ridge, you have the hard palate. These are the passive articulators. And in the sound production, even the soft palate is a passive articulator because the back of the tongue rises and touches the soft palate, right? So in such situations, when we produce the sounds like k, g, ng, back of the tongue rises and touches the soft palate. So in those situations, soft palate is the also passive articulator. Okay, right. So if we come back to trills, when we produce trills, this active articulate is rapidly vibrating against the passive articulator. So you can feel it when you say r, the sound r. We don't have many trills in English, right? R is one example for trill. R. When we say r, our tongue is vibrating, right? Tongue, r. Kind of vibration is there. And it is making contact with the palatal region, right? With the vibration. So the manner of the production of trill is like that. You just remember rapid vibrations are there. Okay. And then we have the next category, flap or tap. Both words are there. Right? So this involves momentary complete closure in which the active articulator strikes the passive articulator only once. Only once. Flap. Right? It is one strike of a trill and similar to a stop. Except that the tongue is more tense and controlled than in a stop. Okay, right? So tap sounds, this is the nature actually of the production of taps. It's like only once. Now there are some sounds which we produce, which we identify in the words to be produced only once, like quickly. Okay. And it is mostly similar to stop consonants. But when we produce stop consonants in general, right? What do you think about the tongue? In flaps, tongue is more tense and controlled than in a stop, of course. It is produced quickly, very quickly. Okay, right? That means the active articulator strikes the passive articulator only once, and that happens quickly. So just one example is given, na, right? Okay, so that is about flap sounds. Anyway, this is not the major category among the types of consonants and the manner of articulation, but comes as one, right? And the next one, approximant. Approximant is a major category, right? So what do you mean by approximants? One articulator approaches another but generally not to the extent that a turbulent airstream is produced. Right? So one articulator approaches another one. There is usually open approximation in the three different types of approximation. So there are three different types: laterals, retroflex, and glides. Right? Lateral, retroflex, glides. And now we'll see the major factor or feature is that when we produce approximants, the open approximation is there, which means the two articulators are coming closer. Actually, one articulator is going closer to the other one, right? But actually, although one articulator goes near the other articulator, unlike the fricatives, we don't produce any hissing sound. Shh sound is not there. Okay, unlike the fricatives. Okay, lateral is one category and approximant. You know, lateral, there's only one lateral, L, the sound L in English. Right. This is how we can write L using the phonetic symbols. So this involves complete closure of the central portion of the vocal tract with the lateral passage of air. The air may pass around the sides with no stricture. No stricture. Actually, no stricture means no obstruction. So you can just check this, right? You pronounce or produce the consonant L. L. When you say L, you can imagine how the tongue is located, positioned inside the mouth, right? The tongue is positioned just like a curve, right? Inside the mouth, like this, no? So tip of the tongue is touching the alveolar ridge, and that is why L is an alveolar sound according to the place of articulation. And in this position, what is happening to the airstream that comes from behind, right? Airstream is flowing from behind, no? So when the tongue is like this, the airstream flows through the mouth in either side of the tongue, right? Either side of the tongue, and goes out of the body through the mouth. So no obstruction is done to the airstream, right? No obstruction, so we call it open approximation. No obstruction is there, is made. Now this is how laterals are produced, and there's only one lateral. Right? The sound of L in English or in languages other than English with some stricter close approximation. So you may be able to find some other examples for laterals, not in English, in some other languages, of course, where you can find a little bit close approximation. Close approximation means the articulators are coming closer to each other. But usually, in English, L is a lateral with open approximation, right? No, not any kind of obstruction is done to the airstream. No obstruction is done, right? That is lateral. One category under approximant. So L is an approximant. The major category of L is approximant, and specifically it is a lateral. And the second one, retroflex. So this is the usual R. Okay, now don't confuse with retroflex and trills. Right? Now I told you when I was talking about trill, this sound is not very common in English except for the Scottish R. Right? R. But this retroflex R is a little bit different. So this involves the underside of the tongue curling back behind the alveolar ridge towards the palate. So you need to read this line so you can clearly understand what is happening in the production of retroflex. The sound of R in English, laterals and retroflexes are called liquids, right? Okay, liquid is another term which you can keep in your mind. That's a common term for both laterals and retroflexes. Right? Liquid. It's a common term for these two categories. So what is happening in retroflex? When we say our usual R sound, what is happening? Your tongue position, the tongue curls little bit back, right? Pointing towards the palatal region, right? So the tongue, shape of the tongue is like this. Palate is somewhere here, right? Palate. So the tongue little bit slightly curls back. This is the tip area towards the palatal region, behind the alveolar ridge, right? R. So when the tongue is in this position, the airstream is passing through it to the airstream is passing through the tongue, right? And goes out of the body, and we produce the sound with a kind of vibration. But this is retroflex is different from trills, of course, right? Here the rapid vibration of the tongue takes place with the apical part of the tongue. Apical means the tip area, right? But in retroflexes, the whole tongue is vibrating, right? And it is rather than only the tip is involving, right? It curls back to the palatal region. Okay, so retroflex is the commonest sound for us in our languages, not only in English, even in Sinhala and Tamil. Also, I think you have retroflex. Right. And next one, glides. Glide, or we call semi-vowel. So this involves a glide to or from a vowel. So the sound is articulated like a vowel, but functions as a consonant to begin or end syllables. Like, for example, were in English. Okay. So glide or semi-vowel, you know, semi-vowel, half vowel. It is called semi-vowel because half is like a vowel, the other half is like a consonant. It is like a vowel because there is no obstruction, right? So always remember the major difference between vowel and consonant production is that consonants, there is an obstruction done to the airstream, whereas in the production of vowel sounds, there is no obstruction done to the airstream, no obstruction. So when we produce semi-vowels, of course, we are not obstructing the airstream, never. There are two semi-vowels, right? One is were, as you can see here. This is one semi-vowel, and the other semi-vowel is year. This is not the letter J, okay? This is the phonetic symbol for the sound year. Like when you say yellow, yellow, the first sound of the word yellow, yogurt, right? Yeah, both are glides or semi-vowels. So in both cases, the vowel is not, the airstream is not obstructed when we produce these two semi-vowels. But both function as consonants, right? Function as consonant means to begin or end syllables. Usually in syllables, you know about syllable. Syllable is a speech unit where there is a vowel sound, right? And in most of the syllables, we have a consonant together with the vowel sound, either at the beginning of the syllable, that means before the vowel, or after the vowel to end the syllable. So these are consonants, right? And these semi-vowels function to begin or end syllables. Usually that is being done by consonant sounds, right? But even semi-vowels too can do it. And that is why we say semi-vowel is both like a vowel and consonant. It's like a vowel when we think about the manner of the production, articulation, because no stricture or obstruction is involved. And when we talk about the use of this semivowel, it functions as a consonant because in syllable divisions, right, syllable boundaries at the beginning or end of syllables, we can use semivowels were or ye. Now, you know, yellow. Yellow is a word, right? Now, I'll just, sorry. I write the word yellow in phonetics here. In typical Sri Lankan English pronunciation, yellow, right? Yellow. You can see there are two syllables there. I'm underlining these two syllables, first syllable, the second syllable. Now, if you look at the first syllable, there is a there are two sounds, right? Vowel is there, A, and that vowel is preceded by the sound Y, right? Ye, that is the first syllable, Ye. So in this first syllable, we have begun this syllable with Y sound, which is a semivowel, right? Although it is not a consonant, we can use it to begin a syllable, like in Ye in yellow. So therefore, we can say semivowels function as consonants. But semivowels are produced as vowels. Right? I think you are clear with these three categories that come under approximant. So lateral, retroflex, glide. All these three can be called approximants. So approximant is a very common word, right? It's a general word. So you need to understand approximants are usually produced with open approximation, right? Open approximation, which means without involving any obstruction, no obstruction done to the string. So lateral, retroflex, glide, you need to keep in your mind as the different ways of producing approximants. Right. Okay. So this is a chart. I have come to the end of the types of consonant sounds, and after this we'll find some more examples. Before that, you have this table. I hope you can understand this table, right? This is actually on place of articulation and manner of articulation. You have place of articulation here and manner in the left column. So all these examples are given, this consonant sounds are given in phonetic script, right? 2 slashes are not available, but I think it's not a problem. You can clearly understand, right? We'll see stop. First manner of articulation, stop consonants. So stop consonants can either be voiceless stop consonants and voiced stop consonants. And these two categories can be identified in so many places of articulation, which means there are bilabial stop consonants, alveolar stop consonants, and velar as well as glottal stop consonants. And when you talk about the nasal consonants, bilabial nasal, alveolar nasal, and velar nasal. So I hope you can read the rest of the table like that and understand, right? So this is a kind of amalgamation between manner and place of articulation. We have combined, right, both manner and place together, and examples are given in a table like this. Right, so I hope you know about this voiced and voiceless sound productions, right? Which means if you remember the first phonetic criterion, first phonetic feature, the function of the glottis, that is the deciding factor behind the production of voiced and voiceless. I hope you remember that part, okay? So therefore, I'm not going to repeat that here. Also, Okay, so can you understand the table? Does the table make sense in you? Can read it and get some idea? Okay, right. Give me 1 second. So now these are some more information, right? Further details, actually all these things are available in the module and more than this, of course, right? I am limited with the time. So therefore I don't want to, and I can't also go line by line. What's there available in the module, right? It is not possible. So therefore that's why, of course, you have already the module with you and you can go through it and try to understand. And these lectures are only supporting you to follow the module. Okay. So for that purpose, of course, I have taken some important sections in the module and I'm discussing them so that these discussions will help you get further information that are available in the module. Okay. I hope you can understand what I said. So therefore, don't expect me to take everything in the book or the module, right? It's not practical. And let's discuss the major areas, right? So when we talk about the stop series in the English language, because now all these examples are coming from the English language, right? Now we are talking about the stop series. Now, stop series means the one particular category under manner of articulation. So then you need to isolate stop consonants, right? Just from the other types of consonants available under manner of articulation. Consider the stop consonants. Then there are paired voiced and voiceless stops produced in 3 locations, right? Now we know about voiced and voiceless stops. In a way, actually, these are further explanations based on this table, right? Okay. Table is a kind of summary of all these explanations. Okay. So we'll come back to stop series. Voiced and voiceless stops are there in 3 places. 3 places means 3 locations: bilabial, alveolar, velar. Right? These are the names, of course, the labels which we give to these consonants. And you know, bilabial means the location is lip, right? The location is there in the upper lip and the lower lip. And alveolar, regarding bilabial consonants, and alveolar consonants, the location is the alveolar ridge. And velar consonant, the location is the velum or the soft palate. Right. So when you think about the bilabial consonants, the voiced bilabial stop B and the voiceless bilabial stop P. These are the examples of bilabial consonants that are considered as stop under manner of articulation. Okay. So now there are 3 features combined. Hope you are following the points here clearly. 3 features are combined here. One feature is the place of articulation. The other feature is the manner. Now in this case, only one manner, that is stop. And the third feature is voicing, voiced or voiceless. So the first point we see bilabial, voiced bilabial stop and voiceless bilabial stop. So voiced bilabial stop, B. Like when you say bang, ember, mob, B sound. So the vocal cords are vibrating, right? Vocal cords are vibrating when you produce B sound, and that's why it's called voiced. And voiceless bilabial stop, that is P, like pound, open, poop. You can see P in all the three positions: initial position, middle position, and end position in these example words. Okay, so per the vocal cords are not heavily vibrating. That is the idea here, right? You can't say vocal cords are not vibrating. They are not heavily vibrating because the airstream flows through the larynx very freely because of the availability of space. So glottis is open. That is why we say we produce voiceless. And there's another important thing I want to highlight here, right? These names. Voiced bilabial stop, voiceless bilabial stop, and in all these situations you can find this name, right? It is a name, right? Actually, and that's why I'm underlining with the highlighter here. And you need to be familiar. So, of course, the voiced bilabial stop is the name of this sound, right? Now, just like that, there are 22 consonants and 2 semivowels, 2 other semivowels. So all these sounds have their own names. So if I say B, you should remember the name of B. That means voiced bilabial stop. And it should work on the other way around as well. If you happen to see this name elsewhere, voiced bilabial stop, right? While you are reading something or wherever, you should remember this name talks about, or it means this sound, right? So it should work in both ways. You should be familiar with the name as well as the related sound there. Okay, and I think the components of the name are clear to you. Voiced, first part of the name is coming according to voicing, whether the consonant is voiced or voiceless. And the second part of the name is based on the place of articulation. According to the place of articulation, what is the label which we give to that consonant, and the last part of the name is coming according to the manner of articulation. That is how we have voiced bilabial stop for B. And per, if you just think about per differs from B only in voicing. Per is voiceless and place and manner are same. Both are bilabial stops, right? Okay, so can I know whether this naming is clear to you? Naming? Hope you are listening. If these things are not clear, you need to stop me, right? And ask for clarification. I hope you would do so. So I would continue, right? Okay, anyway, can I know whether the sound is clear? I don't know, I'm talking and whether you all are listening. I mean, can hear my voice or not?
Yes.
You can hear, right?
Hear, ma'am. Today is
okay, fine, right. So then the second category, alveolar. Alveolar stops, because we started to talk about stop series now. So first bilabial stop and then alveolar stop. So in alveolar stops, the major feature is that these are stop sounds, which means you know about stops now, where the airstream is fully blocked. And this blockage takes place at the alveolar ridge. And that is why we call them alveolar stops. And here also you have both voiced and voiceless sounds. Voiced alveolar stop, that is D. And voiceless alveolar stop, we get T. So there are some words also where the sound occurs. You can get some idea regarding the sound. Of course, these sounds are familiar to you, right? You know about them, right? So the voiced alveolar stop. How do you explain that? When we produce the air stream is fully blocked by the tip of the tongue and the alveolar ridge, and the vocal cords are vibrating. The same thing happens while the vocal cords are not very much vibrating when we produce T. Okay, right. And the next category, velar. Velar stops. And here also we have, of course, two examples, and there's one more also, nga, but we'll talk about these two. Actually, there's a problem there. This should be the symbol, right? Okay. This should be the two. Just forget about these two dots. That's a mistake. G. G is the consonant which is called voiced velar stop. Now, velar, I hope you can understand in the sense you remember why we call k, g as velar sounds. Our back of the tongue rises and touches the soft palate or the velum. That's why we call them velar consonants. And both are stops because by the back of the tongue and the velum, because of the touching of these two, we fully block the airstream. Therefore, both are stops. And one is voiced. G is voiced. K is voiceless. Okay. So these are the names. Voiced velar stop and voiceless velar stop. Okay. So these three stop consonants are available. And the stops share some features. You can find them here. First, the voiced stops are articulated for a short period. Then the corresponding voiceless stops. Okay, now, of course, rather than finishing our discussion on these categories of stop consonants, you need to know, you are required to know a little bit further. And that is why these, some of the main features of these consonants are also given to you. So I think you can understand this is the difference between the production of voiced stop and the voiceless stops. You have two columns here, right? B, D, G, like in cab, cad, rag, B, D, G. And the second column you have P, T, K, cap, cat, rack, P, T, K. So the final consonants in column 1 take less time to pronounce than those in column 2. So what can you say about the consonants in column 1 and consonants in column 2? Consonants in column 1 are voiced consonants, whereas column 2 contains voiceless stops, voiceless consonants. So the point is, we comparatively, we take less time to produce voiced stops. Cab, cad, rag. Comparatively, right? Compared to the voiceless stops. So we take a little bit longer time to say p, t, k, like in cap, cat, rack, like that. So that is one feature. These two, there's the first feature, right? Second, the three voiceless stops have two variants each. The three voiceless stops have two variants for each. Right now, look at these underlined words. There are two columns again. Okay, now there are two columns. Pot, First one, steam, scud. Per, per. Okay. And the column 2 also you have per, like pot, steam, scud. You can notice them, they are already underlined, but I'm underlining now also. Now there is a difference between these two sets. That is the point. Right? Okay, I'll just circle first. This is the first set and this is the second set in column 2. So column 2 lists aspirated versions of the stops in column 1. Right? We say these consonants are aspirated. They are aspirated. Whereas first column contains voiceless stops that are not aspirated. So you need to be clear. Aspiration means that you release a small puff of air after articulating these sounds. Like, okay, how do you say pot? Of course, this aspiration may not be that much familiar to Sri Lankans. Right? When we say English, when we use English language, when we talk in English, of course, we are not very much aspirating. But when you listen to these native English speakers, they have this feature, right? They are aspirating voiceless stops when they occur at the very beginning of words, like in the words in column 2, at the very beginning, like pot, team, cut. I don't know whether you heard me clearly, right? There's this additional small puff of air is produced. K, t, k. And that aspiration is marked with this symbol, of course, right? This should be superscript, of course, like this. In this way. This is the symbol for aspirated p, right? Aspirated p. This is pronounced as p. But non-aspirated stops, voiceless stops, the same sounds, but they do not involve any aspiration, like spot, steam, scud. You can clearly hear p, t, k, without the small puff of air. Okay, so this is another feature in stops. And there's a third feature also. Voiced stops may be partially devoiced at the end of words, anticipating the following silence. So we stop voicing part way through the sound. Devoicing is indicated with a diacritic called an underring. Right now, this, if you happen to see this anywhere, you need to understand it means devoicing. Right? Devoicing. Devoicing means you start not to voice the sound. The sound becomes voiceless. That is what you mean by devoicing. So, b in rub could be represented b, or we may simply not release the stop at the end of a sound and end of a word, right? Now, rub. Think about this word, pronunciation of b, this b. Now, what is happening? You know, if you isolate b, right, in isolation, b is a voiced. When we say b only or b in the initial position of a word, it is voiced. But at the end of a word like rub, it is not voiced. It is not, it's voiceless, of course. De-voicing is happening to that. Sometimes, of course, we do not even pronounce the stop clearly, right? Not release means that we don't clearly even pronounce the word. So de-voicing happens. That's the third feature. So try saying rap, rat, rat without releasing the stops. The word should still be distinctive even though the initial consonant and vowel are the same, right? Okay. So in all these situations, you know, this voicing happens in different ways. Right. Okay. So unreleased stops in narrow transcription are indicated with the superscript corner. Now these are some of the diacritic marks that are used to indicate devoicing, as well as this the different unreleased stops. Okay. Stops that are not released properly. Not released means almost not pronounced. You don't hear. Maybe the speaker is telling them, but the listener cannot hear properly. Unreleased means that, or not released means that. Crack, 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 like that. Okay, so the diacritic marks, because now these diacritic marks are important. When you happen to read something, you might see these. So you should have some idea what they mean, right? Okay. And alveolar stops behave in several distinctive ways. When you talk about the alveolar stops now, right? First, of course, we were talking about the oral stops now. Can you remember now? Okay. So far we were talking about stop. Oral stops, right? Bilabials. Now, this alveolar. When t occurs between two vowels in the intervocalic position, right? In two vowels, as in PT, Betty, little, latter, better, writer, city, or pretty. You can find t is in between two vowels. It is normally voiced in both American and Canadian English, though not in British English, right? Actually, now these are some practical applications of these things. Practically, how you can observe these things, right? So when we say t, when t is located in between two vowel sounds, now you know, normally all the vowels are voiced. And some vowels, some consonants are voiced and some other consonants are not voiced. Voiceless. T is a voiceless consonant. T. But when t occurs in between two vowels that are voiced, this t automatically becomes voiced. But this happens in American and Canadian English, right? Not very much found in British English. So, varieties of English language. Okay. Right. And that's one feature regarding the alveolar stops. And another feature, second feature, when d precedes the th sound, it's often made as a dental stop, with the tongue against the back of the teeth, rather than as an alveolar sound. Now, you know, d is the alveolar sound, right, in British English. But when d occurs in front of th sound, now the phonetic symbol of th is this, no? In front of th sound, it's often made as a dental stop, rather than an alveolar sound, right? Okay, because th is a dental sound. So because of that influence, d also becomes dental, not alveolar. So we do so because we are anticipating the following dental sound. So note the different position of the tongue when you say the does in the following. So these examples will help you understand this feature, right? Okay, so you have wide red in column A. Pay attention to the, right? The. And second one also you need to pay attention to the sound, but in these two words, with, breadth. Do you find any difference? The in wide is different from the in width. Because here in width, the is occurring before a dental consonant. So because of that, the has also become dental, right? The has also become dental. So unlike wide, When we say wide, there is alveolar consonant. So you can understand the same thing regarding bread and breathe. Okay. Well, so then the nasals is nasal consonants consist of 3 nasal consonants articulated in the same positions as the 3 sets of oral stops. Right? As the 3 sets of oral stops, like see, in fact, the only difference between stops and nasals is that in producing the nasals, the velum is lower so that air is released through the nose. So other than that difference, these nasal consonants are the very same with the stop consonants. So, I mean, the nasal stops are same with oral stops. Other than the difference that is created by the velum. Okay. So the nasals in English are all voiced. All the nasals are voiced. So there may be some other languages where there are voiceless nasals, but in English, all nasals are voiced. Right? And these are the categories of nasal consonants. The bilabial nasal, alveolar nasal, and velar nasal. To complete the name, of course, you can insert voicing. So all are voiced, right? So the name of ma is voiced bilabial nasal. And voiced alveolar nasal, na. Voiced velar nasal, nga. Right? Ma, na, and nga are the nasal consonants there. Ma, like in mad, omen, room, and na as in nose, onerous, lawn, nga as in singer, ring. Okay. Ng. So 3 different places. Ma involves 2 lips, so that's why bilabial. And na involves the tip of the tongue and the ridge, that's why alveolar. And nga involves the back of the tongue and the velum. Right? Okay. To produce the bilabial nasal, the lips are brought together. You know about the production of bilabial nasal, but air is allowed to escape through the nose. Right? So unlike per is also bilabial consonant, but it's a oral stop. But ma is, right? As for b, when you talk about b, of course, that is a oral stop, bilabial sound. But ma is a bilabial nasal. And with the nasals, you can maintain the articulation as long as you have air, right? So the alveolar nasal nga is articulated with the tongue in the same position as for the alveolar nasal, right? Of course, now when you are listening to these things, you might find, okay, what are these sometimes, because these things are not very much kind of, not that very familiar to you all, right? So therefore, you may not find it quite interesting to be listening to these similar looking words or all these things. But the point is, in order for you to understand the module, this lesson in the module, you need to try to concentrate on what is being said and actually what do you mean by these lines. And that's why I just thought about taking some major parts and discussing them. But unfortunately today we don't have students, right? Unlike yesterday. Yesterday the students were there. Some students were there, but unfortunately I had the problem. But today the other way around. So without the aid of the lecture discussions, you might find it difficult to follow the module. That's why. Okay, if you are listening, can I know whether you have gone through the module, this area of the module? Iresh and Safni, if you are listening to me at the moment. Could you please update me whether you have gone through, whether at least you have read this part in the module? It seems that no one is listening. Okay, right. So then just have a, because I plan to finish one section. So therefore, let's continue, right? The velar nasal is a bit more difficult to produce in isolation, since in English it never begins a word. Velar nasal, here we are talking about ng, this sound. Usually we don't use this consonant to begin a word. At the beginning, initial position, we don't have this, right? So this is an explanation of how you can produce the velar nasal. Because velar nasal is not very common. Sometimes some people might find it very much unfamiliar, right? But there are a lot of words where velar nasal occurs in the middle position as well as in the final position. Like ink, singer, and ink, singer, and also in the earlier, there's an example. Where is that? Okay. In these situations, of course, you have it in the middle position. But when you think about nothing, the word nothing, it occurs in the final position, but never in initial position. Okay. So in case of the velar nasal, we encounter first phonetic symbol, not borrowed from the Roman alphabet. It's represented by n with a tail called an ing. There's a tail there. Okay, so this is a description about the velar nasal. And there's another thing on velar nasal. It is always found before the graphemes or g. Though the g sound is usually not pronounced in final position. Okay, right. Now we can find nga. Nga. This is the velar nasal, right? Although these words have been written in Roman alphabet, when you write them in phonetic script, you can find in anger, nga. This is the sound. And it occurs before g. And in sinking, this is nga, occurring before h. Here, g. And here also you can see, right? It occurs before h or g. Remember that. So, because of the influence of the following k or g, this n becomes velar. That is the incident, right? Because of the influence of the following k, velar k or velar g, the preceding n becomes ng. So we can't say ng, right? You can't use your tip of the tongue touching the alveolar ridge. When you say anger, it is the back of the tongue. When you say ng, back of the tongue touching the velar, right? Okay. And here something about alveolar nasal. It may have a dental variant when it occurs before the dental sound, just like the previous one, right? Now, can you remember the in relation to the what we discussed? The is alveolar, but if it occurs in front of the, it becomes dental. Just like that, this alveolar, na is alveolar, like in 10, moon, na is alveolar. But when it occurs in front of a dental consonant, the, right? This is a dental consonant. So when n occurs in front of a dental consonant, it becomes dental. 10th. When you say 10th, check where your tongue is when you say n. right? When you say the sound na, where is your tongue? In 10th, also in month. Your tongue is touching your upper teeth. So in these two words, when you say these two words, na is not alveolar, it's dental. And you have that point here. Okay, so now these are about fricatives, voiced and voiceless fricatives, produced in 4 positions, right? So this is a combination of the manner of articulation on fricative with the places, with 4 different positions, right? Or places of articulation. So now so far we were talking about the stops, no? Now we are looking at fricatives, right? 4 places, look at them. One set is the voiced labiodental fricative and voiceless labiodental fricative. Ver and fer. I am not going to read the example words, of course. These words are there for you to recognize the nature of the sound, right? Ver and fer. Of course, these two sounds, both sounds are clear. You can see the difference, right? Actually, the phonetic difference is ver and fer voicing. Ver is voiced and fer is voiceless. Both are produced at the same place, labiodental, and both are fricatives. This is one place of fricatives, labiodental. So you should remember what you mean by labiodental now, right? Labiodental consonants are produced with the use of lips and the teeth. Lips and the teeth. That is why labiodental, right? And we have 2 sets of lips and teeth. So we use lower lip and the upper teeth to produce ver or fer, lower lip and upper teeth. Right? That is one place of articulation or one position. Next one, dental. Voiced dental fricative and voiceless dental fricative. The is the first one, voiced dental fricative. So when we say or produce the vocal cords are vibrating, so that's why voiced. And the tip of the tongue or the blade of the tongue touches the teeth, upper teeth. And we produce hissing sound, fricative, right? So all these are fricatives, which means when you produce any of these sounds, you should know you are producing these underlying sounds, hissing sound, right? You are producing hissing sound. You should know that. So I think the second set is also clear to you. They are dental fricatives. The third set, of course, called an et or barred symbol. And the voiceless version is represented with the Greek letter theta. Of course, now this is something about this the, right? This is about further explanation about the. And the next set, voiced alveolar fricative, z, and voiceless alveolar fricative, s. Both sounds are produced at the alveolar ridge and both are producing frictions, hissing sounds, and z is voiced, s voiceless. Next position, alveolo-palatal fricative, right? This is the first sound, j, equation, probe. And the next sound, sh, as in shirt, marshal, right? J and sh. Okay, so you need to understand alveolo-palatal. Why this word? This is a combination of 2 places of articulation, right? One place is alveolar ridge, the other place is hard palate. So the tip of the tongue touches the alveolar ridge and the front of the tongue touches the hard palate. When we say these two sounds, sh and sh. Okay, that is why the name alveolo-palatal. And when we produce both, there are hissing sounds. That is why they are categorized as fricatives. So one is voice, the other one voiceless. Right. Okay. And this is something about labiodental fricatives, ver and fer. So they are made by bringing the lower lip up against the upper teeth. I have talked about it. And the dental fricatives by placing the tip of the tongue near the inner surface of the upper teeth, right? And dental fricatives are quite uncommon among the European languages. Dental fricatives are not very much available, right? And often cause difficulty for non-native speakers. So even for native speakers, it may be difficult to distinguish between the voiced and voiceless variants. Now see, bath, 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 either, either, then, then. The is voiced, her voiceless. Okay. So these variations between voiced and voiceless dental fricatives are not really clear, right? Difficult to distinguish. That's the idea. And most of the time, these dental fricatives are not very common now. Of course, in Sinhala language, we don't use, we have tha and the, right? Thayanna and dayanna. But we never produce these two sounds with frictions. Do you produce any hissing sound when you say the or the? Even when you talk in English, right? When you pronounce the and the in English, there are also no friction available, right? Quite uncommon. But among the native English speakers, this friction is there. It's available. Unlike the other non-native English speakers. Okay, right. Okay. And the alveolar fricatives Z and S are made by bringing the tip of the tongue up towards the alveolar ridge. Z and S. So now these are some small explanations regarding the place, right? How these two articulators are making contact with each other, right? And the alveolo-palatal fricatives, J and Sh, are made by bringing the tongue up towards the region between the alveolar ridge and the palate. Okay, right? Now, further to talk something more about fricatives, these two subclasses are important for you to know. Sibilants and non-sibilants. So, sibilants are there with fricatives, right? The sibilants and non-sibilants are associated with fricative sounds. Just there are two subtypes of fricatives. Sibilants, they are produced by constricting the air and then directing it over a sharp edge, namely the teeth. Okay, see the difference between sibilants and non-sibilants. This yields a sound with more acoustic energy, hence loud and higher in pitch than other fricatives. Sibilants are perceived as loud hissing sounds. Loud. So they are quite loud. And has hissing sound is clear. Like s, z, zh, zh. And also affricates like ch, j. These are sibilants. What about the non-sibilants? They involve constriction of the air but no sharp edge. And they are consequently much quieter with less hissing. Like f, v, th, th. These are non-sibilants, right? So the very clear distinction between sibilants and non-sibilants is sibilants have sharp hissing sound, whereas non-sibilants have less hissing sound. And when we produce sibilants, they are like this blockage to the air occurs over a sharp edge, right? Usually with the teeth, like s, z, and the ridge. But non-sibilants, we don't find that kind of a sharp edge, like f, v, t, d, that is there, right? Well, now you are getting to know with some more keywords, obstruents and approximants. Approximant, we earlier found the word, but just think about these obstruents. Obstruents are the affricates, fricatives, and stops. They all belong to the larger class of sounds called obstruents. So, whole because their production obstructs the flow of air through the oral cavity, right? And they are grouped together because they are similar. They behave similarly. So you can understand here when we produce affricates, fricatives, and also stops, we are clearly obstructing the airstream, right? Now this obstruction, I'm not telling should always be complete 100%. There are partial obstructions also, like in affricates and especially fricatives. So partial or complete, whatever, these obstructions done to the airstream is very clear, very obvious in obstruents, and that is why we have that name obstruent. Okay. And on the other hand, approximants in English include 3 sets of quite different sounds, all articulated with open approximation, right? The open approximation means no real restriction on the airflow. We are not making any obstruction or restriction to the airflow, and that is what you mean by open approximation, right? So on one hand, we have obstruents, and on the other hand, we have approximants. So English approximants are generally voiced. So it's not necessary to specify this feature in their description, right? So the alveolar lateral, the sound in L in these words is represented by L to feel what the tongue is doing. When you articulate the sign, say D and then L. Okay, so this is something about the production L again, right? So no need of repeating that here also. You need to understand under approximants, there are a few categories we were discussing, right? One is lateral, and then retroflex. The third one, glides or semivowels. All these 3 types are approximants, which of course, do not associate any obstruction to the airstream. So this is typically the opposite manner of obstruents. All right. So here comes the next explanation about the lateral under approximant. So lateral and glide or semivowel, right? So there are 2 glides in English, year and w. So year, this is year, we call it palatal glide. Like yes, canyon, yellow, yogurt, right? And w is the velar glide, right? W. It is a velar glide. This is the symbol. And that is bilabial also, right? Okay, when you say this sound, your tongue is raised in the velar region, but you also have strong labialization. Labialization means lip rounding. So remember, when you say w, the same, not w, right? Not the consonant w, the semivowel w, you round your lips, right? You round your lips. Not only the tongue is raised towards the velum, your both lips are also getting rounded. So that is the characteristic of the semivowel w. And the third category, retroflex, as we earlier saw. So the tongue curves back somewhat, and there is also some amount of labialization. Retroflex, so it's a sound, river, area, measures. You can find the sound, right? So measure some extent. Okay, fine. So these are the things which were meant to be discussed under manner of articulation, and you have some a summary, kind of summary on diacritics that are used in addition to the consonant symbols to denote phonological processes. Phonological processes mean some processes where these sounds are changing to indicate the sound changes. Okay, so you so some of these diacritics during the discussion, not r, of course, right? Now looks like r. This diacritic is used to indicate that sound is devoiced, and this is for the aspiration. This is for the velarization, right? Velarization and dentalize. You just see this is the diacritic mark, and unread is this one. So you found all these 5 phonological incidents during our discussion of different types of manner of articulation, right? Different types of consonants that can be identified under manner of articulation. So here you have a small work. Actually, I don't know whether at the moment the students are listening. I have that doubt, but I want you all to try this question. This question is not available in the module, but is formed according to the module, right? So it says, give the phonetic symbol for the initial consonant sound or sounds in each of the following words. So even if you may not be, I don't know, even if you are not listening to the lecture now, definitely you would do later, right? So therefore, while you are listening, right now the time has come for you to do some exercises. Actually, these are not heavy works, right? Very simple work. Only thing is you should pronounce these words. There are so many words, one by one. And identify the initial consonant sound, and you just write the symbol. You need to write the phonetic symbol of the initial consonant sound. So there are more than 10, right? 20 words are there, which means there will be 20 different consonant sounds of initial consonant sound of these words. So I'm giving you some time now, right? I'm giving you some time. When you are listening to this, you need to do this work now, right? Start doing. In few minutes, I'll get back to you and discuss the answers before we wind up this session today. Okay, right? I'll give you a few minutes. Right, okay. So I think the time is enough. The given time is enough for you to try this. So what about the first one then? The first consonant sound in rhetoric. Rhetoric, that is, okay, I'll write here. Second one, one. This is actually not a consonant, that is a semi-vowel, word. Third one, no. This is the consonant. And Thomas, it's actually t, right? And the next one, sure. Sh is the sound. The next one, cereal, sir, not sure, right? Sir. And jaguar, j. This is the symbol for j. And unity, next one, unity, y, the sound y. Okay. And peasant, that is f. Peasant, f. Next one, teen, initial consonant is th. Next one, sun. Although the letter P is there, we don't pronounce it, right? The silent. So, sun. Sir. Chorus, th. Next one, chest, ch. Symbol for ch. And next one, chalet, chalet. Next, also shave, right. And next one, nut. The is silent, so nut. Rome, first consonant sound is r. And the next one, zero, z. Ghost, this is the symbol for g. And the last word, science, first consonant sound is s. Okay, right. So these are the consonant sounds, right, in phonetic script. So you should have done this correctly, I hope. Okay, right. So let's wind up our discussion today, and I will continue the area in the next session, probably tomorrow. Okay, right. I'm stopping screen sharing.
Thank you.
Okay. Good night, all of you.
Good night, madam.